And dear participants, we have the next presenter here, Mr. Nadim, going to present the topic on native advertising. And about Mr. Nadim has spent the last 4 years taking apart native traffic source algorithms to understand how to spend efficiently and scale aggressively. He's launched thousands of campaigns, spending a healthy 8-figure on native as a media buyer. In early 2021, he co-founded 6H Agency with the goal of becoming the largest native ad agency in the world. Currently sitting on the double-digit market share in Germany with 6H Agency, Mr. Nadim will break down the steps for success on native ads through the use of performance-driven content, giving performance marketers an alternative to Google and Facebook. I welcome Mr. Nadim.
There we go. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Nadim Kuttab. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 6H Agency. We're based in Cologne, Germany, and we have an office in South Carolina in the US. I'm going to talk to you a bit about today about native advertising. We are by far one of the most successful native advertising agencies in the world, spending millions a month on Taboola, Outbrain, and Yahoo. A little bit about myself. I've been doing this for about 5 years, spent around 50 million, as the introduction already said, and we are the go-to point of contact for Taboola and Outbrain globally. What is native? Before I really start going into details on how advertisers, how companies, how affiliates, how brands around the world can use native to their benefit, native ads are unique in the sense that they're placed below content. So what that means is that you have a piece of content that you read on articles and websites like CNN, like Fox News, like BBC. You'll finish reading an article, below you'll be recommended organic pieces of content followed by the native ad feed. They look and feel like organic pieces of content, making them extremely powerful at engaging users because people are clicking on them out of interest to read and to consume content, not because they want to buy or be served an ad. Why native? I get this question a lot. There's a lot of channels. Most advertisers out there are running on social and on Google, on search, or on display, or YouTube. Oftentimes, native is the answer to a problem. Why or how do we spend a lot of money without increasing the cost per unit acquisition? The answer is the moment of next, what Taboola calls essentially the moment when you finish an article, when you're presented with a native feed. The benefit of native here is that, again, you're reaching people at a very specific time and you're not interrupting their user journey. Before you start spending money, before you get into native advertising, you should understand what your goals are for native. Native is a cold user acquisition channel. It's not very good at segmenting small users. You cannot set your targeting to men between 35 and 45 in a specific region of a country, like you can do with other channels. It's very good for a broad appeal product. We're selling a lot of insurances, a lot of very generic products that a lot of people need. Those products work exceptionally well on native. And it's very strong for reaching audiences that you've reached on other channels. There's a lot of people using Criteo instead of running with the networks directly. I want to talk to, I'll mention that very briefly in the presentation, but using the traffic source directly has its benefits, and it's really strong at generating awareness and direct revenue. We're direct response marketers. What that means is that clients, big and small, pay us to spend money profitably. For every dollar they invest into native, they expect more than $1 in return. Native is an extremely strong channel for that. I have a couple of cases towards the end that I can show you how that works. Building your funnel. There are 4 main steps to the native funnel. The first is the native feed, which is where the ads are placed, the publishers that you run on. The second step is the content that you serve. The third step is how to generate interest from that content and push them towards some sort of capture form, whether it's a product page or a lead form. And then the final step is generating a sale or a lead. I'm going to break these steps down for you today to help you understand how to get started on native and how to essentially build a profitable campaign on Taboola, Outbrain, and Yahoo. Step number 1 is ensure that you've got the right pieces in place. There are 3 pieces that you need to get into the right places to make this funnel work. The first is the ad that you're serving on the channels, on the publishers, and on the traffic sources itself. The second is the content that you serve behind the ad, so bringing the user in. You want to make sure that they're getting content that's relevant. And then the third is the product page that you send them to where they can give you the information or buy your product. These three pieces need to be working together for a native funnel to work. This is really just extremely a very raw form of marketing, using content to warm audiences up and then push them to take action on a specific page. The ad. Native is not a traditional display channel. Oftentimes, native ads that are very direct don't work very well. You are bidding a CPM, which is the cost per 1,000 impressions, not a CPC. So at the end of the day, your ad CTR is the key to winning the auction here. You want to make sure that you segment and then sell. I have a couple of examples of that in a second, but it's really important that the content looks organic, like you would find on a news site. Like organic content is out there, right? If you see an ad, or you see not an ad, you see a little thumbnail for an article that's on BBC, you want your ads to look and feel the same as that thumbnail selling that organic piece of content. You want to ask yourself, who do you want to reach? What do you want them to do? You want to create a headline that speaks to your people, those people, and then couple it with an image that sets the stage and gets their attention. In practice, that'll look like this. Imagine we have a meal kit company. One of our big customers globally is a meal kit company that spends a lot of money in up to 16 markets with us globally. Their goal is new customer acquisition. So before you start, you want to ask yourself, for the ad level, what are some of the problems this product solves? 3 examples would be expensive supermarket prices. People are unsure of what to cook at home, so they lack creativity, or they want to live healthier and therefore cook healthier. You take those 3 ideas into ads, and you can see the 3 ads here. You have the eating healthy made easy thanks to Genius Meal Kit. Food prices too high. This meal kit might help, with a picture of a supermarket, and then cook like a professional chef with this meal kit to address the creativity aspect. These ads are examples of how you can capture people's interest with a theme, set the stage, and then push them on to the content part of what native advertising is about. There are some things that you need to keep in mind after capturing that click. You want to build content that connects to the ad. We typically structure it in the following way. You have an image that piques interests, an introduction to the problem that you've presented in the ad, an explanation of why the problem is relevant to the readers, followed by a solution. What's really important after this is that you want to create some sort of fear of missing out or urgency. If you do not have a strong call to action or a case for people to buy today, as an example, we had a client that came to us, they had a good product, but you can buy it at the supermarket for exactly the same price as online. There was very little reason for people to buy. So we had great metrics in the funnel up until the call to action where people said, no, I'm not really interested to buy it now. I'll get it when I pass the supermarket tomorrow. So it's important that you have a unique call to action. You create some sort of need for the product to be purchased today. Otherwise, you don't have direct response content. You have branding content. The product page. This is one of the hardest parts to get right, in the sense that a lot of clients will use what's working on Facebook or Google for native, and it won't work. It's very important that you have a fitting product for native. By fitting product, you have to go back to what I said earlier about who is native for. It's a broad audience, it's a strong value proposition. You want to make sure that you have the right people and that you generate interest through content that is relevant. Before you get somebody to take action, you need to ask yourself, do you have perceived value? And am I priced correctly? If you have these 2 elements and you have a funnel that leads the user correctly to your product page, you're going to have a lot of fun on native. Perceived value is key in the sense that it's important for people when they're faced with making a purchasing decision to make that decision as easy as possible. I see a lot of people creating a really good native funnel and then sending people to a product page that has 400 different products or 400 different bundles of products to buy together. That's not great because it's very difficult for the people to understand the perceived value. It's also the same for if you're selling a I don't know, $40 iron. I have no idea, just making up ideas here. You have a $40 iron, and why would somebody buy that product at that price today? You need to give them a reason, and that's where perceived value is really important. It's also a matter of perception when it comes to price. We've tested the same product at different prices, and we found that something between $40 to $80 in tier 1 markets like Northern Europe, Central Europe, and the US, North America, and Australia, $40 to $80 seem to be the sweet spot when it comes to direct response product campaigns. The reason for this is, I think, relatively straightforward. If it's cheaper than that, people feel like, hey, this isn't really a high quality product. Why would I spend my money on it? Or the revenue that you generate to get that sale isn't going to cover your marketing costs. And if it's a lot more expensive than $80, it might take a lot more convincing to get the people to dish up their hard-earned money for the product. Design is also extremely important here. Design enables action. I cannot stress this enough. Keep it simple. This is universal to direct response marketing, but specific to native because you don't have other targeting options. Keep it simple, reduce complexity, and make the decision to buy a product straightforward. If the user is given the choice of 10 different options, the chance or the likelihood that they don't make a choice increases a lot versus if they're given 2 or 3 different options to purchase the product. Campaign methodology, and this is getting a little bit into the budgets. For those that want to start, I'm just going to put this here. You want to be bidding 60 to 90 cents mobile desktop in the US. You want to consolidate your campaigns on Taboola, and on Outbrain, you want to split them out and have a lot of different iterative tests running. And you need at least, in my opinion, $300 a day per campaign to be successful on native. Otherwise, you have too many moving variables and don't collect enough data on them. I mentioned CPM before. I want to get back to it. What I mean by a CPM-based auction. In Taboola and Outbrain, in general, and native, a lot of these platforms will sell you inventory on CPC. So you're paying for the cost of a single click. You're paying 10 cents, you might be paying $1. It doesn't really matter. What's important is the ad CTR in combination with your CPC. At the end of the day, the networks, so BBC, CNN, they only really care about how much money they're making per 1,000 people on their website. If you have a bad CPM, it means that you're using the inventory on their website very poorly or paying very little for it, and therefore you won't be served. So at the end of the day, it's not that important what you're paying as a CPC for the networks. It's important for you as an advertiser because you want to run profitably, but the CPM is really your auction here, or your bid in the auction. A little bit of a differentiator between Facebook, which a lot more people are familiar with, and Taboola, which is one of the bigger native platforms. Taboola and Outbrain are really the 2 leaders in the space globally. On Facebook, you define an audience in the Facebook dashboard. You'd go in, you'd select men over 40, you'd select interests that you want to get them to, you'd serve content that is very direct. You have a lot of space on the ad. On Facebook, you can have a video that with subtitles or with audio to sell an idea, and you can have really long text that people read through in the description part of the ad. You can then serve relatively direct content that presents the product and then push them to sell the product on the product page. On Taboola, you need to do it a little differently. With fewer targeting options, your ad messaging is really your key to getting the right people to click on your ad. If you have an ad that says, get $100 by clicking here, everybody's going to click on that ad, and you're not going to really set a filter. On the flip side, if you want to have a filter, I'll show you an example of that in a second, you want to make sure to set that filter in the ad and set the stage through the headline and the image that you have. Serving content on native serves more of an education and a warm-up than a description of the product itself. You want to make sure that the content gets the user from the ad experience and warms them up for purchasing the product. And then the sale part of the funnel is really where the product is sold and the prospect makes their decision. On the ad level, that might look like this. On Facebook, you can have the best dental insurance, find out more here, and have all the targeting options in the back end. On Taboola, you want to be a bit more specific and segment the audience that you're trying to reach. In this case, 7 surprising reasons why men over 40 need dental insurance really sets the stage. You're looking for men over 40 that have an interest in dental insurance, and you're using clickbait in the headline to drive up your ad CPM. Taboola versus Criteo. For those that don't know what Criteo is one of the most successful retargeting platforms in the world, where you can really spread your reach to the people that have already engaged with your brand across a huge variety of channels. The reason that this isn't a great method for Taboola or for native advertising overall is because it's very generic. Sure, it works because it's easy and you're reaching the same users everywhere, but doing it directly with the platform, in this case, having a Taboola ad that looks more like a Taboola ad rather than a Criteo ad, will drive down prices. It's a bit more work, but it'll be worth your effort. The native effect. This is something relatively unique that we haven't seen in other channels, or at least to the same regard. Native, because of the low CPM and the huge amount of reach that you're getting. I mean, this campaign had 63 million impressions for about 123,000 in ad spend. Your viewable impressions, so actual impressions, were a lot higher. What we've done here, what we've seen here is we had one client, this is pretty much the only case of this that was this direct to measure, one client that had no paid ad spend anywhere else. And what we saw is we started a Taboola campaign, we started increasing the amount of spend from very little to quite a bit. At some point, we were spending close to €10,000 here a day. And that translated directly into a lot more sales than we were tracking directly, which meant that for every sale that we managed to generate on a last click basis on Taboola, we were tracking 2.5 sales in Shopify. What this meant is that a lot of people clicked onto the ad, read the content, potentially even went to the product page, but then purchased via another channel, either later, going directly back to the product page, or by Googling the product and clicking on the SEO links that the company had for them. So it's important to understand that native isn't just a really good direct response driver of revenue, but it also has a huge impact on the visibility and the amount of search volume that brands get because of the way that native is built and the amount of impressions that you buy. We have a couple of cases here. We for Blendjet, the American e-commerce product, spending a ton of money on Facebook that wanted to get into native. We used 19 content pages, 200 ad variations, and improved the performance by a factor of 3 by split testing a bunch of different things. The landing page that they had a bunch of different elements, presented the benefits of the product, and then pushed the user out to take actions and buy the product. Here's a real estate client where we spent around €4 million last year. For with a extremely stable CPA. The orange line is the cost per acquisition. So you can really see that throughout the year with a maybe tiny bump in Q4, the acquisition was relatively stable. There's few channels that provide this type of stability and scale outside of Google search. This is an arbitrage client. Again, what we're seeing here is that the stability and of performance is extremely good, especially once the funnel has been dialed in. Here is a food delivery client, the case that I showed you earlier, where the CPA aggressively goes down, then stays down while we scale the client up. A language learning app, same thing. CPA started high and went down after the initial test phase with spend increasing. And this is a lead gen shopping client where the same thing happened, where we tested things, and then once CPAs went down, we started to scale. I hope this was a bit beneficial for those looking to get into native advertising. And I'm available on LinkedIn or pretty much anywhere on the internet. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Mr. Nadim, for the wonderful presentation. And we have some questions here. The question is like difference between native advertising and content marketing.
You're talking about one, which is a type of advertising, like a channel, and the other, which is a way of advertising. You can use content marketing on any channel. Native advertising in itself is a channel. So what I'm saying is that you need to use content marketing on native to be successful, not that native is a different form of content marketing. It's just very reliant on content to work and to perform because of the nature of native ads, because you're reaching people at a time where they're consuming content. They want to be served an article or an article style content piece. That's why a content marketing strategy for native is so important.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Nadim. And you have another question. How to measure native ad performance?
There are many different ways. We use the tracker volume. I'll type it into the chat here. Volume. As a live tracking tool and also a tool to split test content pages. I just did a webinar 2 days ago with them and Taboola. I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it. The Taboola also offers a pixel, whether it's a cookie-based pixel or a server-to-server postback, to track different elements or different steps of the funnel. If you're just starting out and you have low budgets, I'd recommend starting with what Taboola offers and then moving towards an external tracker like Volume once you have found your footing and want to increase your spend a bit more.
Thank you so much. And one more question here. How to create engaging native ads?
You need to ask yourself who your audience is. So one is, what are you trying to sell? Because at the end of the day, it's the theme or who you're trying to reach is more important, right? If you want to reach men or women in a certain demographic or a certain age category with a certain interest, you want to make sure that that's reflected in the ad. So if I give you an example, like pet food, I would want to make sure that I reach pet owners, not people that are just interested in cute dogs. So you want to make sure you set the scene correctly. You have the headline that's built. Oftentimes headlines that ask questions or leave a little bit for interpretation are the best. That's why, a headline that's, go ahead. Okay, and that's why headlines that ask questions, for example, 7 reasons why XY said works, or 7 reasons why dog owners need to try this pet food brand. That's a headline that'll generate or pique interest and get relevant users to click on it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nadim, and for your wonderful presentation. We thank you for your valuable contribution and time for attending this 5th GDMS conference.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great Friday. Thank you.
Good day too.